All right, welcome back to the Powers on Sports podcast. It is not quite Super Bowl week, but it's the dead week before the Super Bowl. Probably one of the most boring weeks of the year for people in the media and all that. The NFL loves it because we get to hype up the game for 2 weeks, but it is a dead week. No more games this week. Got to wait almost two full weeks until we get our next game here in February. It'll be February 13th in Los Angeles. And no better person to talk Super Bowl. We're going to talk the Super Bowl matchup. We're going to talk AFC, NFC divisional and NFC title game matchups. We're going to talk a little Hall of Fame. Baseball Hall of Fame had their selections last week. No better person to talk to than Roy Cummings. Roy's been covering the Buccaneers since 1999. He's a Buccaneer insider for PewterPirates.com. Longtime sports media member here in the Tampa Bay area, both TV and print and radio. So I know we've had Roy on several months ago. It's the first time we've had him on this football season. So welcome back, Roy.
Thanks for having me back, Jason. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. I know you're a football fan as much as you are a media guy. Has there ever been a 2-week period, divisional round, NFC, AFC title games as dramatic and as down to the wire as we've seen these last 2 weeks?
No, there hasn't. I'll tell you, I thought the divisional round weekend was the best weekend of NFL football in the game's history. I don't think we've ever had matchups and games that good, comebacks, as you said, down to the wire, drama, overtime drama, great plays, bad football, great football.
Coaching,
really
bad coaching, good coaching.
Yeah, but that's what made it exciting is all the questionable decisions, all the good decisions. And then you follow it up with these championship games this past week. And it was, again, another exceptional week. So I'm going to say right now, the last 6 games that we've seen from the NFL have been 6 of the best games we've ever seen from the NFL. And fans are really enjoying it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Every time you think the wild card round was not a very good round of games, so you never know how these games are going to go. You know, the NFL just keeps figuring out a way to keep the interest level up. And the TV ratings were off the charts. I'm sure they were tremendous for the title game. You had upsets. You had, again, teams that you didn't think were going to win. You had drama with Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers' future and all that, which we're going to get into. But just unbelievable drama. All 4 games in the divisional round end on the last play of the game, whether it's a field goal or a walk-off touchdown. I don't think that's ever happened in NFL history. And obviously, AFC, NFC title games were just as dramatic. Both of them went down to the wire. All right, let's go to NFC Championship game first. San Francisco, LA hosting in LA, 20-17 final. The Rams finally get it done. Kind of the team put together with all the star players, sacrificing all the draft picks by Sean McVay, Les Snead and company out in Los Angeles. Just your thought on that game. And before I ask it, you obviously knew Sean McVay a little bit during his time with John Gruden. Tell us about your interactions with Sean McVay as kind of a low-level assistant with the Buccaneers.
Yeah, might have said hello a couple of times. That would have been about it. First of all, when you had John Gruden, you really didn't need to go to anybody else. But at the time, Sean McVay was really such an underling that he wasn't anybody that anyone in the media really had any opportunity to really interact with. There was no reason to.
Right.
Again, I don't. If anybody tells you they developed a relationship with Sean McVay at that time, they're probably lying to you. I hate to say that, but. Because he was just such a so low on the totem pole at the time. But you know what? That's how guys make their mark in this league, or start to at least. You get with a darn good head coach and you start to pick his brain and follow his lead and do what he does, and sooner or later you might get a chance. And it certainly has worked out for Sean McVay. So very happy for him. And so again, I'm very happy for him.
You look at the game yesterday. We were very close to being in a situation where Sean McVay would be getting killed this week because of some coaching decisions he made in that game. Some replay reviews that he did. They wasted some timeouts in the second half. He was on the brink of being the reason why the Rams didn't win the game. Give him credit. Give Matthew Stafford credit and that defense. They buckled down going to that fourth quarter, coming back from 17-7. And then on the other side of the ledger, you have Kyle Shanahan, Jimmy G, all the controversy around his tenure in San Francisco. Just your thoughts on the coaching moves that you saw yesterday by both those guys.
Yeah, Sean McVay, I think, has developed a pretty good, reputation for being a bit of a gambler, certainly taking chances, not afraid to, lean on his best players. And, there he was on a critical third down, in scoring position behind, and he threw this little pass out into the floor, call for a little flat pass out into the backfield, went nowhere. That was a situation, you got to take a shot at the end zone there.
Yeah.
You just completed 2 long passes. And remember, everybody saw, so that's on me. And it clearly was. And he just, he looked a little skittish there, but certainly he came back. And I think he realized, hey, I've got some horses here that I've got to lean on. Matt Stafford, I've got great receivers. I thought Odell Beckham Jr. played a tremendous game.
Yes.
Really played well. So we're really happy for him. And you know what? Let's not forget Raheem Morris is on that team too as a coach. Defensive coordinator, might get a shot at another head coaching position. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, a lot of interesting decisions there. And when you got Jimmy Garoppolo, look, again, you lean on him as well. You think you've got a pretty good talent there, and I think they do. But one thing happens, and I'll say this about Jimmy Garoppolo, probably not the coolest customer under pressure. He's going to probably be criticized a lot for the little the attempt to try to make an incomplete pass out of what would appear to be a sack. I don't think he ever thought he would throw the ball high enough for that ball to get missed by the back. And then it gets tipped and intercepted, and there's the game. So can't blame him for that. No. But hey, this is, we can sit back and question a lot of the calls, but bottom line was, as we said already, just a great game. And usually sometimes in great games against 2 great teams, it comes down to who makes the biggest mistake. And in this case, it turned out to be San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, it was just crazy. It was funny how the Rams' path to the Super Bowl this time, they had to beat 2 divisional opponents, Arizona and San Francisco, which obviously these teams so well with their regular season meetings. So even a tougher task for the Rams to have to do that. Kyle Shanahan, I was surprised he didn't go for it on 4th and 2. We had about 4th and 2 on like the 42. McVay had just challenged, lost the challenge, and then they called a timeout. They went to TV. I really thought Shanahan was going to go for it there because they had a little bit of momentum. If you score there, you really put the Rams in a major bind.
It's true, but I looked at it and I thought, boy, it's really 4th and 2.5, and it was a long 2.
Yeah.
And if you don't get it, the way the Rams were moving the ball, I got a feeling that that could really come back to haunt you. There's times when sometimes you have to say, hey, this is more of a risk. We can give the ball to our, let our defense go out there and play. They're part of this team too. You got to have faith in your defense as much as your offense. And I think in that case, he decided, hey, the smarter move here is to play some defense, get the ball back. And you know what? At the end of the day, they had a chance. And just
they punt the ball. They punt the ball, and the play after the punt, the DB drops the ball right in his hands on the bomb, which was crazy.
Yeah, right.
And then the next play, they hit Beckham for like 30 plus a 15-yard penalty. So the whole field flips after that 2-play sequence of the Niners intercepting the ball and not catching it, and then Odell Beckham for the big catch, and then the personal foul. So just crazy how the momentum swung on that last 7 or 8 minutes of the game.
Yeah, like I said, in games like that where you have so many playmakers making plays on both sides of the ball, it usually does come down to who makes the larger mistake. And you hate to say it that way, but that's what it came down to. Yep. The bigger mistakes were made by San Francisco, and that's what ended up costing them at the end of the day.
I saw a stat that Kyle Shanahan in his last 3 playoff losses has been outscored 53-0 in the 4th quarter. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's not good. That tells you that there's something inherently wrong in the scheme and the game plan. So I'm not sure what that is, but
crazy.
Some different players involved. But at the end of the day, you got to look at that and figure out what's going on.
Man, crazy. All right, let's go to the AFC. The game we all thought, okay, great story with Cincinnati coming in, Joe Burrow, all that stuff. But you think, okay, they got to go to Arrowhead. Here comes the end of the road. they are getting smacked 21-3 late in the second quarter. And Kansas City basically has the ball on the 3-yard line with 15, 20 seconds left in the half. You know, they got 2 opportunities to make it 28-3, and you know it's going to be 24-3 at the minimum. And Patrick Mahomes just absolutely has a brain cramp and blows that last couple plays, and they get nothing, which gives Cincinnati a little bit of life going into that second half.
Yeah, it sure did. And look, I don't think anybody would argue with my belief that the better team lost. I think Kansas City was the better team. But again, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but in games like this, who makes the bigger mistakes and when? Both teams are going to be playing well, and both teams did. And this came down to, again, another critical mistake. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between what happened with San Francisco at the end and what happened with Kansas City at the end of their game. And you let a good team back in, you let them hang around, and there's a good chance you're going to get burned by it. And that's exactly what happened. So, I don't think there's any question. Kansas City is the better team, but on this day, they made one too many mistakes, and it ended up costing them.
And it shows you what a team who might not be the most team of potential and skill and athletes, when you have that quarterback that everybody believes in Joe Burrow. I mean, say what you want. This guy's a gamer, and that guy made a couple of unbelievable scramble runs for first downs when the Bengals were teetering to getting blown out, and he made some plays with his feet. Remember, coming off a major knee injury last year, people don't realize that, getting battered all year. He got sacked 9 times last week in Tennessee. Just the grit of Joe Burrow to keep hanging in there in a tough environment.
Yeah, the football world has woken up to Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, no doubt about it. It's going to be an intriguing Super Bowl because you have Matthew Stafford, who's never been there, never won a playoff game before this year, finally getting his chance in the Super Bowl, and then one of the young guns, and there's so many of them right now in the NFL. But one of the rising stars in Joe Burrow, that matchup is certainly going to be interesting, the way that works out. So, hey, I'm very excited for this Super Bowl. I think it's going to be a really good one. It's going to certainly be fun gearing up for it for the next 2 weeks. That's for sure.
And then you have the coaching angle where Zach Taylor used to coach with Sean McVay in LA. So he's got that angle. That's how Zach Taylor got the job in Cincinnati, because of his work with Sean McVay. And obviously, so you got that angle as well of knowing each other's tendencies and things like that. That's going to play into this game as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So many storylines, and we're just developing a couple of them here. So there will be more, that's for sure, because this is an interesting matchup. Not only of these, it's been a while for both of these teams to be in the Super Bowl, but it's obviously new for LA. It's been a long time for Cincinnati. Some of the personalities on both sides of the ball on both teams, really interesting. The way Cincinnati's building their team through the draft, as opposed to LA, which kind of went the Bucs route and got a bunch of free agents and decided we're going to go after this thing and make this new building that we've built pay off for us. And lo and behold, it's going to happen. So this will be interesting. Again, 2 years in a row now. Yeah. You've got a team in the Super Bowl hosting its own game. That's interesting.
Exactly.
So many years of never having it.
The first 54 years of the game, you've never seen it happen. And on 2 back-to-back years, it happened. So it's crazy. So how many Super Bowls have you covered?
Oh, gosh. I guess about 15 or 18 of them.
Very cool. How many times have you ever been in a Super Bowl? Obviously you covered it for the Bucs a couple times and such, and so obviously many, many more. Have you ever been out and about places and you've seen stuff player-wise related that you that you so wanted to report on, or is that kind of what's the reporter in you when you see stuff in a Super Bowl, guys at nightlife, guys out on the town that you say, uh-oh, he shouldn't be doing that, or uh-oh, what is the kind of the fine line of reporting that kind of stuff, especially during a Super Bowl?
Well, if you see it, you certainly can report it if you think it's worth reporting. But I got to be honest, I don't remember seeing much. One of the things about the Super Bowl is you're so separated from the players. They do the media is usually in one hotel miles away from where the players are. And the other thing is you don't see too many players out and about anymore during the week of the Super Bowl. They know that it's a business trip at that point. Most of the reason to go out is really not there. There's a lot of meetings. There's so much more involved than normal for players. They've got to go to the media events, and then you've got other things. And then, when you get to the weekend, the media is always going to the various parties. There's different parties, but usually players aren't involved in those things. It's rare that they ever show up. So
right.
It's very rare that you kind of stumble on a player. Now, Tampa's been known for having a few, it's got some venues that players find their way to for sure. And, when that's happened, it's been reported. And, usually it's something that doesn't come out until after the game, or if it comes out, before the game, it's something pretty controversial that everybody knows about, or possibly involving an arrest. That's the thing you really have to avoid. And I think, in the last 10 years, I would say, teams have figured out a way to keep most of those things under wraps, and not just under wraps, but the players have realized that, hey, we got to be smarter about this. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and we can't be stupid about this.
Yeah, you've had the two kind of in the last 20 years or so. You had Eugene Robinson with the Falcons, got arrested, and then in your Super Bowl, you had Barrett Robbins, the center for the Raiders, had his issue down in. I know he had some. I don't know if it's mental. He had an issue where he kind of went AWOL. How do you going back to remember that? How much do you really think affected the Raiders in their preparation? You think it was astronomically important? Because remember, this was the Gruden Super Bowl against the Raiders and all that. How much of an impact do you think that Barrett Robbins thing had on the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it was just another issue that they had to deal with. Look, they were kind of backed up against the wall to begin with, because Gruden knew exactly what they were going to run, knew what the offense was. The Bucs knew what was coming. I don't think the Raiders necessarily knew that, but they might not have had the best game plan put together, because everybody knew what was coming. But now you throw on top of that this distraction. You just can't have that. A key player for them, and the Super Bowl is a game where you've got to have all your best. Right. Pretty much at their best. And if you're missing one guy, it throws everything off, because you've had a week of preparation, and to lose a guy like Eugene Robinson or Barrett Robbins the night before the game, there's just no opportunity to adjust. Yeah, the backup can go in there and say he's going to play as hard as he can, but it's just the whole team is mentally checked out at that point. Not necessarily checked out, but everybody's affected when that suddenly happens. 24, and the bizarre way in which it does happen. Yeah, right. A guy arrested for solicitation, a guy who goes across the border and is suddenly, just missing. Disappears. Yeah. It goes AWOL on his team. It's like the whole team's wondering, what were you thinking? So everybody's talking about it. It's on everybody's mind, and it's a major distraction. It's a big edge for the opponent when something like that happens.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting in this game. Well, I'll get you a quick Super Bowl prediction here. Interesting in this game, you have the team of veterans of the Rams, all the older guys. You got the experience, and then you got the young guys in Cincinnati that don't know any better. You got a bunch of all their big playmakers are young guys, probably less than 3 or 4 years in the league for all their big players. How do you think that dynamic will play into all the theatrics of the Super Bowl and all that stuff?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. But you know what? Let's face it. Some of the guys on the Rams have never been there. So, Stafford, start with him. Cooper Kupp. The stars have never been there. Again, I think you're at a point now where the coaches understand this is the biggest game. This is not the time to go out and have a party the night before a game. This is the time to just focus on the game a little bit. You don't have to study it, but because you've done so much work, take a mental break. But at the end of the day, just be smart that day. It's you got all the next day to get ready for the game, and that throws you off as well a little bit. So go out and have a nice dinner. Just keep it cool that night. If there's something you feel you got to do, or somebody you got to see, tell them you'll see them on Monday or Tuesday, because we just need a good 24 hours out of you here. Keep yourself focused.
That's right. Who you like in the game?
I'd love to see. Part of me would love to see the Bengals win for Joe Burrow. I mean, I think he's a special talent. I like what they've done there. I think it's an interesting team on the rise. I think they're there a little bit prematurely, to be honest. But hey, who can say that when you go out and beat the best team in the conference as they did with Kansas City? But my heart is kind of rooting for Raheem Morris and Sean McVay, these former Bucs guys who, I've got a little bit of a connection to. Certainly Raheem, still a good friend. So,
Right.
And I like, what, I got to pull for Matt Stafford as well. Like to see him do it. Cooper Kupp obviously is a tremendous player. Von Miller, the opportunity for him to get another ring, I think that is special. So I guess I'm kind of pulling for LA, and to be honest, I think they're the better team. I've been concerned about LA all year. I can't tell you how many times I've been asked, what team out there worries you in terms of the Bucs getting to the Super Bowl?
Right.
I've said it all along, from the very beginning, and I'm a guy who picked San Francisco to get to the Super Bowl in the NFC. I thought LA was the best team in the NFC all along, and I still think that's the case. And now I think they're the better team in this matchup for sure.
And the other part of this whole dynamic is how much the Bengals are kind of the perception of the Bengals around the league and league circles, media. They're perceived to have the worst facilities. Mike Brown seems to be archaic in his scouting and all that kind of stuff. Sounds like they practice over an interstate. They don't have an indoor practice facility, but yet it shows if you're a galvanized within that locker room, you can overcome all that stuff and go to the Super Bowl and even potentially win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I remember a team that had the worst facility going pretty far at one point, winning a Super Bowl. It seems like, let me remember, 2002. I think it was the Buccaneers.
Right. So that's just an interesting dynamic and all that as well. All right, let's transition away from the Super Bowl. Let's go back to the Bucs and Brady and Rodgers. What was just your thought of the game? Obviously, that game was probably, the way that game unfolded was probably a 1 in 100 type scenario where it unfolded like that. And then obviously the Bucs get back in the game. Just your general thought of the game and post game and all that stuff.
Yeah, look, one of the concerns I've had with the Buccaneers all year is that they've had a tendency to let teams kind of hang around, and they did it again. And when you get that far behind, it's hard to catch up against a quality opponent.
Yeah.
The Bucs did not play well against Carolina down the stretch, against the Jets down the stretch. I wasn't surprised at all with what happened in the playoffs. I to be honest with you, I wouldn't have been surprised if they got knocked out in the first round. But they were the better team and they showed it. But they're a team that just let's face it, they had a kind of a knack for letting teams hang around, as I said. And the defense to me is just not mature. And when you live by the blitz, you're going to die by the blitz at times, and they died by the blitz. And you heard Levante David talk about turmoil within the defense, and a lot of people trying to figure out what he meant by that. I think what he meant by that is that I think throughout the course of the season, with so many guys in and out because of injuries, COVID, whatever, I think there's been a bit of a communication problem, particularly in the secondary and maybe in the back seven, along with the linebackers. Who's covering who's got what defense are we in sometimes. And I think it caught up to them against the Rams, obviously, at the end, and they paid a price for it. It's a price I thought they were going to end up paying at some point. I never thought that they would struggle to score points, and they didn't. It weren't for Tom Brady, they're not in the game at all. So, but at the end of the day, I kind of figured the defense would probably end up costing them, and it did.
Yeah, it's like I said, just a crazy ending to the game. Obviously, all the speculation that you've heard over the last several days, Tom Brady's future. You had the report that he's for sure retiring. Then Brady says not so fast. His dad's made his comment. How challenging would that be for you if somebody that was not Tom Brady gave you that information, as far as to source it out and that, because that's all the talk is. Well, Tom Brady hasn't said anything, but obviously Schefter and Jeff Darlington, who are very plugged into the camp, somebody told them, hey, he's pretty much, we think it's for sure going to happen. How do you handle that as a reporter?
Well, it depends on who your source is. If it's Tom Brady and he just doesn't want it out yet, and you've got the information, well, you got to go with it.
Sure.
If it's Jason Light or Bruce Arians, or someone at that level, same thing. You got to check it out. You got to get both sides. You got to make sure you do your due diligence. And go to Brady's camp and talk to him and talk to the agent before you go with it, I think. But this is one of the dangers of unnamed sources. You got to make sure, your people are right. My guess is that they have, multiple people telling them from one camp or the other that that this is what's happening. But when Brady hasn't said it, and then you find out that Brady ended up calling Bruce Arians and Jason Light and saying, "Hey, I haven't made a decision yet."
Right.
You didn't get it from them. So to me, if you don't have it from Tom Brady, or the coach or the general manager, I don't think you can go with it. You can't take it from somebody that just knows it. You can't take it from, some guy at TB12 or some close friend or
right.
even Giselle. You can't take it from them. You can't. You've got to vet it out a lot better. And so we'll see, because something that I've kind of thought about here is we're now 72 hours into since this announcement came out, and Brady his camp hasn't really been heard from, except for Don Yee, who says he'll announce it on his own terms. Makes me wonder if maybe what's happened here is that Tom Brady has decided to retire, but that maybe he's going to decide to retire after next season, and that maybe someone jumped the gun a little bit, maybe misinterpreted the message, and maybe there's more to this than just he's done now. It might be that maybe Tom Brady has decided he's done, but he's going to play another year, or maybe he's going to play another 2. But I'd be a little bit surprised. I don't know that he cares about a curtain call type, one last, round of rodeo or whatever, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, I just think that he would control the message a lot better. And so I'm starting to wonder if maybe what's happened here is that Tom Brady's decided, I'm going to retire, but here's the date, and it's not now.
And it's interesting. I was on the way before we started this interview. He released his Let's Go podcast tonight, which we're doing this Monday night with Jim Gray. Didn't make an announcement on there. And then they announced that the podcast with Jim Gray was going to go another year, that they renewed it for another year. So does that maybe lead to say, okay, he might make a group announcement with the family? Hey, we're going to play one more year and then we're retiring? Because, who knows? But it's just, you said, it's interesting that it's been 3 days and there's been his dad is clear cut said, hey, Tom's not made a decision yet. His dad would know, and his dad wouldn't sell him out like that if he didn't. So it'd be very interesting to see if he wait till after the Super Bowl for all the hype after the Super Bowl to who knows, but it'll be very interesting to see if because it wouldn't shock me, like you said, if he comes out and says, I'm going to play one more year.
No, I totally agree. And again, the further we get away from, the breaking news, the more I'm starting to think that, there's another piece to this that someone didn't get. And, so we'll see, because I would think the podcast would have been a perfect opportunity for him to say, hey, and now's a perfect time, because as you said, we are in the week before the before media week. So it's as dead a time as there is in sports. Obviously, there's no baseball news unless you're a hockey fan, which I am. But unless you're a hockey or basketball fan, there's not much out there. Olympics starting. I mean, you would want to get it out before the Olympics start as well, I would think.
Right.
I don't think he wants to underplay this, because there's probably going to be a press conference. But we'll wait and see how it all works out. But it just seems to me like one of two things has happened here. Either somebody got it wrong, or just, as Brady has basically said, no decision has been made and he's not ready to make a decision. Maybe, the process may be a very long one for him to decide what to do. Although I would think that as much of an impact as this is going to have on the Buccaneers and, who comes back to them and what they do in terms of replacing him and things like that, I would think for courtesy's sake, he would let the team know pretty soon here, pretty soon. You
think Arians' future is directly tied to Brady?
I do. And I mean, I would think that, look, Bruce Arians came here. The plan was to stay 2 or 3 years, develop Jameis Winston as a quarterback, and then kind of hand it over to somebody else. If Tom Brady goes, there's no better opportunity to turn it over to someone else than right now. It's not going to be easy, but I don't think Bruce Arians is up for a rebuild, and that's what you're going to be looking at, because you got to think that certain players are not going to come back if Brady's not coming back. Most of the guys that came back last year came back because they felt they had another shot at another Super Bowl, or had a good shot at another Super Bowl, and they did. I got to think if Brady's gone, Jason Pierre-Paul's not up for another rebuild.
Right.
Leonard Fournette's going to go get his money and a long-term deal. Everybody's going to cash in. They're going to cash in on their biggest opportunity that's out there for them. And for some of those guys, it's long-term contracts elsewhere. It's better money.
Yep.
And we'll see. Even though Tom Brady's not going to be making the $25 million that he was here, you'll have that money open. But my guess is you might have to spend your first-round draft pick on a quarterback, and or at least trade up to get one. So,
do you think?
See how it goes.
Do you think there's a scenario where Bruce, and let's say Tom does retire, Bruce tells Jason Light, "Hey, you got till the middle of February to make a deal for one of these big quarterbacks." Russell Wilson's name's out there, potentially an Aaron Rodgers, maybe. I mean, Deshaun Watson's probably even kind of a way off because we don't know his legal situation. Do you think Arians says, "Hey, you got 2 weeks to make a deal"?
Yeah, I think that would be something that might keep Bruce Arians around. But again, I just, if you think you can make it work with that quarterback, again, you're bringing in a quarterback. It worked with Tom Brady, obviously. He came in and adjusted very well. But the other thing I'm thinking here is, if you honestly believe, and we don't know how serious other teams really are about Byron Leftwich and Todd Bowles, if you really think those guys are ready to be head coaches, you don't want to lose them to another team if you think they're that good.
Right.
So if you believe that much in those two guys, I would give one of them, and I'm not saying this is what the Bucs should do. I'm saying if Bruce Arians wants to leave, no better opportunity to turn it over to one of those guys that you've groomed for the position,
right?
And give him the job, and hopefully keep the other as a coordinator on whichever side of the ball it is, whether it's Leftwich as head coach and Bowles as defensive coordinator, or Bowles as head coach and Leftwich as offensive coordinator. And if Bruce Arians wants to stick around as president of football operations, or give him some title that he can remain involved, off the field in essence, if he's interested, I would do that. But I think those are some of the discussions that are happening over at One Buck Place right now, as they kind of weigh where they're headed with this thing with Tom Brady. Again, if you think you're going to lose someone like Todd Bowles or Byron Leftwich, and you think they're absolutely head coach candidates that you don't want to lose, time to promote one of them. And why wait another year with Bruce Arians, who's this is a short-term thing for him anyway, always was. Right.
All right, let's go to Aaron Rodgers. More disappointment in the playoffs. Another, number one seed, can't get it done. And you get tired. And me as a fan, I get tired of hearing Aaron Rodgers say, "Well, the special teams let me down. Well, this, that, whatever the case is." Bottom line is, he had the ball with 4 minutes to go, and it was 10-10, and he went 3 and out. I mean, and he missed Allen Lazard, who might still be running if he hits Allen Lazard on a crossing route instead of trying to force a ball up 50 yards down the field to Devontae Adams. So, what are your thoughts on Rodgers? Obviously, you think he stays, goes, and where do you think would be landing spot if he does go?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's possible, but if it is possible, I think Aaron Rodgers has been humbled a little bit here by this. It's been a rough year for him in a lot of ways, and most of it's his own doing. I think Aaron Rodgers, if he wants to preserve his legacy as the great quarterback that he's been for the Packers, I think it's time for him to shut up, focus on football, and focus on winning, and make up, in essence, for this opportunity lost here. The team is going to probably be a little bit better next year than it is now. Most of those guys are coming back. They're not losing too many key free agents. If Rodgers comes back, they'll probably keep the ones that are thinking about leaving. They can add to it, not necessarily through the draft, but there's free agency, and maybe give them a little bit more of a voice, because if you're the Packers, you got to be thinking, hey, we've blown a couple of opportunities here.
Yeah.
Last year, this year, we should be in the Super Bowl at least one of those times, and it didn't happen. So I think the whole organization, in a way, has been humbled a little bit here. And to me, it's an opportunity for Aaron Rodgers. Clearly, I think he's got a year or two left. If he wants to make them great years, focus on football. Stop worrying about Jeopardy, and stop worrying about politics and other things, and play football and focus on winning.
Yeah, I got you. And again, obviously all the speculation now that his offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, gets the Denver job. lots of talk that, okay, it's going to be a package deal, him, and then they're going to trade for him. And then Devontae Adams is going to come as a free agent. It'd be interesting to see how that plays. I mean, I don't think Green Bay would ever do this, but they're probably going to get at least 2 number ones for him. If they do trade him, probably 2 ones and a player, probably at least. Are the Bucs at all in this market? I don't think they would trade him to Tampa, probably more of an AFC team, a Pittsburgh, a Denver, something like that. But I mean, if you're the Bucs, do you sacrifice 3 number 1 picks if you can get Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? Look, they sacrificed that much to get John Gruden back in the day, to get Keyshawn Johnson, to get they didn't have to sacrifice much to get Rob Gronkowski and Tom Brady, obviously, or Bruce Arians. But Look, this is how the Bucs win championships. The Glazer boys, unlike their dad, not patient enough to build it through the draft. They haven't done a good enough job through the draft. They've come close, but really not haven't put all the pieces together. Look, if you can somehow work a deal to get, if Tom Brady's gone, you can work a deal to get Aaron Rodgers here. Yeah, you go for it. You absolutely go for it. Because let's face it, I mean, if Tom Brady is gone and you're just going to decide to rebuild naturally, you're looking at a long haul at the bottom of the standings. You're looking at, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, maybe a decade again. It's hard to come back in the NFL when you're picking. They're not going to be picking high this year in the draft. It's going to be tough. If Tom Brady is gone, it's going to look a little bit like it did the 10 years after the last Super Bowl championship, which were tough years. So,
right.
If you can somehow get Aaron Rodgers to come here,
Russell Wilson,
absolutely go for it.
Yeah, I got you. All right, listen to the Powers on Sports podcast. I'm Jason, along with Roy Cummings, Bucs insider for PewterPirates.com, longtime media guy here in the Tampa Bay area, covered the Buccaneers since 1999, covered the Lightning. He's a baseball guy. Let's get to baseball. I'm going to get your opinion on a couple baseball things. Hall of Fame announcement last week. David Ortiz in. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens' run on the ballot expires. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it went the way it should be. Now, someone would say that, okay, Big Papi was he played around with the steroids too. Well, it certainly was not to the degree that Clemens and Bonds did. I think they've got it right. To me, David Ortiz is a Hall of Famer, and I don't think Barry Bonds is, and I don't think Roger Clemens is. Certainly, the numbers say they are, but these guys were the figureheads of the steroid era in which they cheated the game. The playing field just wasn't level for everybody. Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine and those guys weren't taking steroids, and Barry Bonds was. That's not fair, and it was illegal. And I'm not one of those who believes that anybody who took steroids consistently to the point that Clemens did and Bonds did and McGuire did, Canseco should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think they're Hall of Famers. I think they soiled the game, and if they never get in, that's fine with me.
Yeah, and the weird, just the ironic part of this whole thing, of that whole scenario, is Bonds and Clemens never failed a drug test, but yet Ortiz was on the mysterious list by the New York Times that he did fail a drug test. So just that dichotomy of balancing that with people's thought process of, well, if he never failed a drug test, how do you convict him? And then if the guy that did fail a drug test gets in the Hall of Fame, so it's just an interesting dynamic how you balance that. And everybody's different how they view that, and that's their right to do that. And it's just an interesting thought to think of how everybody kind of balances that thought.
Yeah, it is, and it's an argument that can go on, but we certainly don't have enough evidence to really implicate David Ortiz. Whereas at the end of the day, we do have plenty of evidence to implicate Roger Clemens and Mark McGuire, Canseco, and obviously Barry Bonds. Look, Barry Bonds, it's all, he didn't need to do it, But
right.
I kind of base my opinion on, I've always felt like I have an educated opinion. It's not just something that I just have from my own gut. I remember listening to people like Ernie Banks and Billy Williams and Hank Aaron and those guys when they were all alive, and Billy Williams still is, obviously, and how they reacted, Bob Gibson, how they reacted and what their feelings were about guys like Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, and and they said, look, there's no place in the game for that, and that's how I feel. Look, as much of a Cubs fan as I am, I don't think Sammy Sosa belongs in the Hall of Fame. In fact, I don't think he belongs, deserves to have his number retired by the Cubs. And I hope it never happens. To me, if you can't play the game clean, then you shouldn't be playing it at all. And I think, again, as I said, I think these guys not only cheated the game, but they soiled the game. And the steroid era is part of it, but to me, it's one of the worst eras of baseball. And it's unfortunate that it happened.
What are your thoughts on Pete Rose?
Yeah, when you gambled on the game, look, if Shoeless Joe Jackson can't get in, then Pete Rose can't get in. Pete Rose should have been smarter than that. You recognize the talent, but at the end of the day, look, that poster is up there. I've been in so many major league locker rooms and clubhouses, and it's right there. You don't gamble. You don't gamble on the game, and you certainly don't gamble on your team, even if it is to win. It just, again, it changes the way you manage the game, how you perceive the game, what your management moves are. Again, it becomes unnatural. It's not the way the game was supposed to go, more than likely. So, and who knows, what Pete Rose did today, thinking about tomorrow's bet, or what player did he hold back today in a game, thinking about his bet tomorrow because of the matchup with pitchers or whatever it might be. So, no, again, if you cheat the game, you soil the game, and you don't belong.
Well, you think baseball and the Players Association are going to get this lockout worked out in a decent amount of time?
I'm hopeful. I really am, because I am a baseball guy, and I'm anxious for spring training to start on time. And if they miss a week of spring training, they'll probably be all right. They miss a week of exhibition games, they'll probably be all right. But I got to think that these issues that they're squabbling over, to me, they don't seem to be that big. To me, they're not the kind of issues that you squabble over and cancel a season or shorten a season. They're important. I'm not saying that they're not, but
yep.
There seem to be a little bit of common ground here on some of them. There's been some give and take, and I think it's really just a matter of finding that common ground. It's got to happen. And each side is not going to get everything they want here, and I think they realize that now, just by looking at the way that the players have given on a couple of issues, the way the owners have given on a couple of issues. I honestly think they're getting closer to a deal, but you never know. I mean, it's so hard to know. But again, baseball's taken a step back from football already. Some people don't consider it the national pastime anymore. Baseball fans still love it, obviously, but maybe they've lost some fans to some other things. You can't hurt the game anymore by canceling games and seasons, and COVID's been tough enough on the game. You got to get together and get this thing solved.
Yeah, they always seem like they can't get out of their own way. I mean, when things are thriving financially, there always seems to be something that just bogs down the American fans' interest in the game. They refuse to speed the game up. They have labor stoppages, whereas the NFL, they figure out a way to never have labor stoppages. Say what you want. They do a great job of keeping the machine churning as far as the finances and the media attention and all that. And for one of these days, they're going to figure out you better not have another work stoppage, or Last thing, I'll get you out of here. What are your thoughts on the Rays? You think they're in the dying years of being here in Tampa, or you think they're going to be able to get a stadium deal done?
No, I think they're going to get a deal done. I think they'll be in Tampa. I don't see. Major League Baseball did what we all figured it would do. I'm surprised the Major League Baseball didn't do it right away and just say you're nuts. We're not doing this. This may be something that happens. This may be the future of professional sports, but the future's not now. I know Stu Sternberg thinks that this shared season idea is something that's everybody's gonna catch on to at some point, but I think we're decades, if not a century or two away from that. I just don't see it happening. I mean, Boston's not going to share their team with Oklahoma City. The Yankees aren't going to share their team with Sacramento. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
So there's no reason for Tampa Bay, the 11th TV market in the nation, to share their team with Montreal, a team in another country,
Right.
much less. It was a stupid idea. It's naive for him to think that this was going to work. I love what the Rays have done in terms of innovation on the field. I appreciate, thinking outside of the box. That needs to happen more in baseball. It needs to happen more in all the sports. But sometimes you just have to call a stupid idea, and this was a stupid idea. And thankfully, Major League Baseball finally came around. And when they really looked at it, they said, okay, this was kind of stupid, right? And we're not going to back this. And they gave him a chance. It's like, okay, put your proposal together and we'll look at it. And I think that's really what happened. I'm sure behind the scenes, there were a lot of eyes rolled and it was never going to work. And I think they probably told Stu Sternberg, look, if you want that, before we can ever make sure that this team is going to work in Tampa Bay, the only way we're ever going to know if Tampa Bay can support a Major League Baseball team is if you put the team in Tampa. You can't put it in St. Petersburg. You can't put it in Sarasota. You can't put it in Clearwater. Right. You probably can't put it out by the fairgrounds in Hillsborough County. You got to put it in downtown Tampa. And if after 10 or 15 years and you're winning still and nobody's supporting it, you're still getting 8,000 to 9,000 people to the games, then we'll talk about a move. But right now, you got to try it there. And if you can't make it work there, we'll find an owner who can.
All right, last question. I'll get you out of back to football. What are your thoughts on overtime? All the controversy with Kansas City and Buffalo. But then yesterday, Kansas City gets the ball and throws an interception, and then Cincinnati goes and wins the game after possession. There's all the thoughts of everybody should have a possession, at least one possession. What are your thoughts on overtime, especially in the playoffs?
Yeah, I've never liked the rule of if a team gets a touchdown, the game's over. That's the idea. This isn't, in baseball, if the visiting team hits a home run, the game's not over. Right. At the end of the day, the other team gets to bat too. And, with the same rules. So everybody should get at least one possession. It's offense and defense. There's two sides of the ball and special teams. So if one team scores a touchdown, in their first possession, great, good for them. The other team should at least have the chance to match it. And without it, it's been a bad rule. It's got to change. Hopefully it does this offseason.
All right, Ro. Great work, my friend. Thanks for the time. Tell everybody where they can find you, Pewter Pirates, and all that good stuff that you'll be doing up here in the offseason as we lead up to the Super Bowl as well.
Yeah, check me out usually on Bay News 9 once or twice a week, doing face-off segments there with Mike Neighbors, who's on pewterpirates.com as well. And just check me out on R. Cummings, FHCN on Twitter. You'll find me there as well. Yeah, I had Mike on the podcast last week. We were talking Sean Payton and his Drew Brees book and all that. Some great Mike's the super guy. So keep up the great work, boy. By the way. What'd you say? A book I edited, by the way. Ah, there you go. There you go. So plug it away. The Breeze Way. The Breeze Way. That's awesome. I know you got something that's in the works now. You're doing something that you've been working on something. So when your project comes to fruition, we'll definitely get you back on and talk the next book opportunity for you. But thanks for the time, Roy. I really appreciate it. Keep up the great work, and we'll see you next time on the Powers on Sports podcast. Thanks for having me, Jason. I appreciate it. All right, we'll be right back with our Life of the Wife series with Allison Peavy, the wife of DePaul University Athletic Director Dwayne Peavy. So we'll be right back in just a minute.